What's up, all you true believers and newcomers alike? It's me, Superfly Comics Guy, and I'm bringing you another omnibus review today. After probably borderline traumatizing a bunch of you with my last video, the Clone Saga Omnibus Volume 2, I figured it was time for a palate cleanser, and what better way than with the classic Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 2 by Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. We'll be taking a look at the cover, the spine, the contents collected, the build quality, and, you know it, a flip through where I discuss some of my thoughts, opinions, and recommendations. So if you like this video, you know how to show it, and if you want to participate in the discussion, feel free to leave a comment down below. But let's get into this omnibus now. So here we have the dust jacket to the Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 2. Back when I bought it, this was the standard cover that was available, so I do have an older printing. And then the variant cover was an homage by Humberto Ramos. Now, newer printings of this omnibus have swapped that around. This is now the direct market cover, and that Humberto Ramos cover is the standard edition cover. And I don't know, I'm really glad I was able to get this one because I do not like that Humberto Ramos cover at all. And I just think I'm not much of a fan of his art in general. Just the way he draws faces and proportions really irks me in particular, but that's just me. Here is the spine for you. As I said, I have an older printing so that it's got the bigger, older font there. And the back. Beautiful Marvel cover gallery. With the contents, Amazing Spider-Man 39 through 67, Annuals 3 to 5, and the Spectacular Spider-Man 1 and 2. Super simple, beauty and simplicity right there. And a cover price of 100 US, 127 Canadian. That's an older printing. I'm not sure if that's the newer printings might be more expensive, but anywho, let's take a look under the dust jacket. Nothing too fancy here, just a simple black cover, and that's very common for Marvel to do with their old Silver Age books. It's usually the more modern books for which they provide like a modern graphic or something like that, art on the board. There's the spine for you. But for older books, they keep it pretty basic, which I don't mind. Let's take a look at what's on the inside though. All right, here we go. Man, you guys are in for a treat if you've never read this before, because this is just a certified classic. This, to me, is what really defined the look and feel for Spider-Man. Here we got a table of contents. You'll love to see it. Taking us from August 1966 all the way up until December of 1968. So we're still in the tail end of the Silver Age here. We got an intro here by Stan Lee from one of the earlier Marvel Masterworks that they released for this material. And he's just talking about how cool it is and how lucky the readers are to be able to experience all this old material all in one place. And yeah, I completely agree. This is a treat. Kicking it off right away with Amazing Spider-Man 39, an iconic issue which, as the cover implies, this is where Green Goblin learns Peter Parker's identity, and oh, it's such a good story. It was even featured in one of the episodes of 1994's Spider-Man the Animated Series. Of course, me being the filthy casual I am, I watched the show long before I read any of these comics, so to me, reading it in the comics just reminded me of the show, and oh, it was just such a feel-good moment. But yeah, you're getting lots of just fun adventures, Silver Age goodness in here, building on the Spidey lore that by now we all know and love, but back then it was completely new. So many cool first appearances in here. For example, the Rhino here. There's his first appearance. Let me see if I can find another iconic first appearance here. Where is it? What am I thinking of? Yeah, there she is. First proper appearance of Mary Jane. Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot. Gorgeous. And yeah, lots of more first appearances, like first appearance of Kingpin, Rhino, as I mentioned, Shocker. But also loads of reappearing villains such as Vulture, Doc Ock, Kraven, the Lizard. It's really awesome stuff. And of course, speaking of the Kingpin, you get the iconic first appearance of the Kingpin in this issue. Spider-Man No More. What a fantastic issue, and actually served as significant inspiration for my personal favorite Spider-Man movie to date, Spider-Man 2, where Spider-Man's struggling between, his identity as Peter and his alter ego as Spider-Man, balancing those two sides, and in the end decides that it's all too much for him, and he decides to hang up the webs. And just a panel that was captured perfectly in Spider-Man 2, as I just mentioned. So well done. An image that will just be burned into your brain for all time after you read it. And even back then, this was really impactful, dramatic stuff, revolutionary at the time. But also for me, this book just holds such a special place for me because it was the second omnibus I ever bought, volume 1 being the first one. Just gives me so many happy vibes, and flipping back through here, it's exactly what I needed after just reading Clone Saga Omnibus Volume 2. It's so nice to go back to just a simpler time when the majority of the character's story can just be easily followed in one series of comics rather than having to worry about keeping up with huge crossovers of like 7 different titles at the same time. It is the Silver Age though, so keep in mind you do have to pace yourself. It's very, very wordy stuff. There's lots of tropes. But I mean, if you treat it like episodes of a cartoon show, which in my opinion is exactly how you should treat it, you'll just have a good time. And really, it's impossible to talk about this particular book without talking about the legend that is John Romita Sr., the artist on this book, who before he was working on Spider-Man, he came off of romance comics. And I think it's his experience in those romance comics that really contributed to the success of Spider-Man. He made Spider-Man beautiful, and I'm not talking about like a handsome Squidward kind of way. I'm just talking about the look and feel of this whole series. Like, this is the look for Spider-Man that I imagine when I think of classic Spider-Man. I think I like his style even more than Ditko's. I mean, don't get me wrong, Steve Ditko defined and laid the foundation for Spider-Man's look, but Romita Sr. really refined it and made it into what I think it was meant to be. And his influence was massive. I mean, for the next 20 years, this is how Spider-Man was drawn. Everybody afterwards tried to mimic his style, but as I say, like Romita's experience with romance comics, this is where Spider-Man got a lot of his, soap opera, I guess, elements. Focusing on his social life, developing his gang of friends, really focusing on the romantic side of Peter Parker's relationships. It really, really goes a long way. And just, man, it's just, the colors pop so much. As I'm looking through all of these pages, I'm still blown away every time I look at it. I mean, I guess you could argue that Romita sometimes he has like a set of character faces or whatever, character models that he reuses for different people. But I mean, they all look so good. So can you really blame him? And of course, what he's probably most famous for is just drawing some of the most beautiful female characters you've ever seen. There's Mary Jane, there's Gwen Stacy, his experience with romance comics really, really contributed a lot here. There's also something really cool I do want to show you guys, which is kind of like a cool bit of history, in my opinion, is that this book contains the first 2 issues of the Spectacular Spider-Man. And this was kind of cool. This was Stan Lee and John Romita Sr.'s kind of experimental black and white Spidey magazine, where they were just kind of trying something new. This first issue was black and white. I think the second one was in color. But, they were trying something new. I mean, the issue didn't sell well. And I think they canceled Spectacular Spider-Man after these first 2 issues. But those of you who are familiar with Spider-Man comics, you'll know that Spectacular Spider-Man eventually became its own spin-off title that ran alongside the Amazing Spider-Man series. So it's really cool to just see these kinds of humble beginnings. It's like an important piece of history, you know? As for downsides of this book, I mean, I'd say they're pretty much the same that I mentioned in Volume 1. You have to, I mean, it's not even really a downside. You just kind of have to accept that it's a product of its time. This is the Silver Age. This is from the mid to late 60s, as we saw. It's very wordy. It's, you know, full of cheesy tropes. Stanley doesn't do the best at writing female characters, I think. That's one of his weaknesses, but it's just, these books are a lot of fun. Oh, but also Aunt May is basically just used as like a plot device throughout these stories. She's just constantly ill, on death's door, every issue, and it's basically just a cheap way of giving Peter Parker something to worry about while he's out doing his Spider-Man stuff. It's that kind of cheesy, tropey stuff that you kind of just have to expect when you're reading a Silver Age book, but if you can get past that and accept what you're reading, this is so much fun. This is a joy to read. I love it. But anyway. But here we are at the extra section of this book. This is a cool page here. We got a bunch of Spider-Man variants, I guess, whatever you want to call them. But basically what Spider-Man might have looked like if he was drawn by other magazines. So you have like an Archie version or a Charlie Brown version. Pretty cool stuff. We have a kind of a goofy little short story here involving the creators of the book. There's Jazzy Johnny Ramita, for example. Then we have some Not Brand Ek. I never really understood what these were. It's like just goofy parody versions of like Marvel characters. I was never really a fan of these, but I mean, whatever. I guess it's cool that they're included. But let me skip to some of the really cool stuff that you get in here. Yeah, here we go. This stuff is cool. Pencil layouts, original panels. Man, there's something about the extras in a Silver Age book that makes it so much more special because, like, think about it. Just because of the age of this, some of these drawings and this material, you just imagine that, like, at some point in time, these drawings were on the desk of I don't know, John Romita or something when he was drawing, right? And then that's what would go into the final issue. It's just, I don't know, it feels like a privilege to be able to bear witness and own, even in a small sort of way, this material. But here we have more, we had some recolorings of famous covers. There's the concept of Mary Jane. God, pretty much they had her nailed down right out of the gates. She's just an immediately iconic look for her. And then some more. A gallery of covers here. Really cool stuff. There's the iconic Amazing Spider-Man number 33. I love that issue. But there you go. Ah, yes. There's the other variant version, variant cover for this omnibus. As I mentioned, not really a fan of it, but there we go. So in terms of the build quality here, you're getting 992 pages in this omnibus. There is that eye for you. You know, considering this was my second omnibus, that is not in too bad condition, considering I didn't even know back then how to stretch a spine. Oh, how naive I was. But anyway, as you can tell, very, very good build quality. It lays over very well. No gutter loss. Again, that helps when with Silver Age books because you have the buffered white space in the middle. As for page quality, it is on the thinner side, this omnibus. As I mentioned, I do have one of the more recent printings. I think this one was printed in China. It's pretty thin, but from what I can tell, there's not too much color bleed. Well, there is a little bit, but not enough to distract me during my reading, as with some of the more recent Marvel omnibuses that have come out. But just wrapping up here real quick, this is such a good book, even now for its age. It's just as classic Spidey as you can get, really. If you asked somebody to distill Spidey down to his, most basic and essential traits, this is exactly what you would get. This is so much fun. Just every issue is just a fun adventure. There's not really multi-issue arcs back then, so you treat every issue as its own kind of episode of a cartoon show, and off you go. Because of that, though, you can't really binge Silver Age material as much, I find, just because of how wordy it is. But if you're a Spider-Man fan and you're okay with, you can accept the kind of older style of material with all of its tropes and older style of writing and that kind of thing, then you should absolutely pick this up, no question. Out of the 5 at this time, Amazing Spider-Man volumes that have been released in omnibus format, I think this is the best one, and it should definitely be in your collection if you're a Spidey fan. But that'll do it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope I've been able to help you out. Let me know if you've read it, or if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to catch you in another video real soon. You have yourself a great day. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, keep reading. Bye, guys.